Oh, thank you for everybody who's watching. My name is Aneth Lwakatare, and I'm part of the Tanzania network. And today, I'm sitting here with the chairman of CHADEMA, Freeman Mbowe, the Honorable, and who was also a member of parliament for about 15 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
How are you, Mr. Mbowe?
I'm very well, Aneth. How are you?
I'm great. What brings you to Berlin?
To Berlin?
Yes.
It's good weather. Can't you see it? It's as good as our weather back home.
Okay. And then you're at the right place during the right time.
Absolutely.
Can you give us the status quo of the opposition politics of the opposition parties back home in Tanzania? What is the realities right now?
Well, I can say the reality is the opposition is undergoing through a new era of political dispensation in Tanzania. You know, in the a few years, we had a fully blown dictatorship in Tanzania during the fifth administration of President Magufuli. The political space, the democratic space was shrinked by government forces, and we couldn't do our political activities as is allowed by the law or by the constitution. So doing politics, and particularly opposition politics, was criminalized in Tanzania during Magufuli's time. Now, with the coming in of the sixth president of Tanzania, Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan, the situation is taking a new turn to the positive anyway. We have been engaged in different talks and discussion and dialoguing, trying to find the new way of doing politics in Tanzania. How political space, democratic space, can be eased in Tanzania to to make it an inclusive process to everyone. How can people's freedom, liberties, and right to do politics, right to engage, freedom of speech, freedom of opinion, and whatnot, how can it be enshrined as part of our national culture? So we've been discussing about this. We've been discussing about these things, and I think politics is taking a new turn now. The political rallies that were denied, were prohibited for the last 7 years, has now been opened, so political parties can freely do political activities. There's no more police brutality as it used to be the case. No new political connected cases are being conducted in the country anymore, because we used to be persecuted by the police anyway, by the state machinery all the time.
The persecution.
Yes.
We are aware that you were personally attacked, arrested, charged, to later being freed from all the criminal charges that were filed against you last year. But had that not been a fact of you saying, Mr. Freeman Mbowe, it's time for me to retire?
No, I'm not a quitter. I'm not a quitter, and I don't expect to be a quitter anytime. This is a call. What I do in politics, I do it for, it's a passion that I have. It's a call, because it's a painful undertaking. Being involved in opposition politics in Tanzania is not an easy job. It's a difficult job, and to keep on being involved despite all the all the fuss that you have to go through, definitely confirm that one has a passion to do what he's doing. So me, for one, I know I have a job to do. There's a cause that I'm fighting for. I'll keep on fighting until my last step. Okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
We have heard of the constitutional review process
Yes.
being brought back to life by the current president.
Yes.
And what are the key changes that CHADEMA wishes for to be included in the new constitution that should meet the criteria of being a constitution of the people of Tanzania?
Okay. One point I must put the notes correct is the process was not revived by the president.
Yes.
The pressure to revive the process was from us, from CHADEMA. And CCM and Madam President herself said categorically that Constitution review is not our priority and it's not part of our agenda. Her agenda was to open up the economy. Her agenda was to open up the country. Her agenda was to fight for, any other thing but not the constitution. This was categorically said, and this is what was happening in Tanzania. Now, with our pressure, and that's one of the reasons why I had to be actually detained in prison for 8 months, because I was advocating for a review of the constitution process. So anyway, but on my release from prison, I had a round of talk with Madam President, whereby we agreed that we need to work together. We need to find a peaceful and amicable solution to our, country's issue that we think were in dilemma between the opposition and the ruling party. And the very first stage was for us to convince Madam President and CCM party, her party, her ruling party, that they need to see the need for a new constitution. Yes. They need to see the reason to have the process restarted, because in that way you reunite the nation. It's an inclusive process whereby you bring in everybody, all stakeholders, all equity, everybody gets it, her or his equity in this process. So it's an inclusive process where everybody comes on board, okay, to unite the nation. Yeah. So it took us about the first 6 months of our talk to persuade CCM to come back into the process. So they say, okay, finally they said, we are willing to come back into the process. So that was one major step that we achieved. Then we went into the second stage, which we are still on as we speak, the process. How do we go about the process? We are still debating on how the process should be conducted. We have differed a little bit. CCM delegation is talking about the constitutional review process to be actually managed and controlled by the president. We in CHADEMA think no, this process should not be controlled by any political party or by the government. It should be controlled by the people. So instead, we say, instead of letting every responsibility to the president, let this responsibility lie with what we regard or what we refer to as the reference group, Constitutional Review Reference Group. That will include political parties, that will include civil society, that will include religious institutions, religious bodies, faith-based institutions. You mentioned them, academics, just everybody on board. So at least we have a structure whereby, and we're actually proposing maximum of 30 people group that will oversee the whole review process. We are still stuck there. I'm going back to tonight, as you know, and among the issues that we are going to discuss next week is how to untangle these different views into how do we reach a consensus on how to move forward. And then the third stage will be going into the contents of the very constitution. So that is, at a later stage, but at this point in time, we need to agree first about the process. How do we want this process to take place?
So as I'm understanding now, it's about the process, how the process is to be conducted.
Correct.
And then forward to the content that are still open for discussion.
Absolutely.
It seems, there has been a tradition of the government back home to spend a large part of the national budget of public funds without the supervision and permission of the parliament. And is that something that you're also observing? And if yes, what are you personally, as the chairman of CHADEMA, doing and in that regard? And
you see, it's something that we see and we have complained many times, not once, not twice, many times. More often the government spends money out of the budget lines. They do it so, regularly, and it has become a new normal now. Okay, what are we doing as CHADEMA? Of course, by being in CHADEMA, by CHADEMA being there, we are fighting for good governance. Good governance will take into consideration accountability, responsibility, all sort of public goods that can be done to ensure that the country is managed smoothly and more democratically. the issues that we have in Tanzania today is not only the government is spending out of the budget, it's actually the pilferage and wastage. Actually, according to the study by DFID, 30 to 40% of Tanzania government's budget is wasted or ended up in people's pockets. There's a very, very high degree of pilferage in Tanzanian budget. So much money is being wasted. So much money is being squandered. When there is construction or there is anything that is taking place, it will be done in a very substandard way and a lot of money will be spent. We call our government a luxurious government who will buy expensive vehicles and airplanes while the people are dying in hunger and poverty. So it's not only the question of spending money out of the budget lines, it's the whole question of governance in our country. We think CCM has been there for over too many years, and it's high time they take a break and a new momentum, a new thinking, a fresh brain goes into the governance. We need to transform. We have a huge, highly potential country. It's a sleeping giant that has been completely underutilized. It's been completely misused over many years by the CCM as a ruling party. And that's exactly why we are in the opposition, and that's exactly why we want to go into power.
In that line, using the words of Mwalimu, who once said that ignorance, disease, and those two at least are the biggest challenges that Tanzanians face: ignorance, poverty, and disease. In your line of argumentation that you just presented, are those still the challenges really that we Tanzanians, that most of the Tanzanians back home face? And if not, what other 3 or 2 are the main challenges?
Interesting. Mwalimu said these words during the years when we were getting independence, that we got rid of the colonial rulers just because our country is in poverty, has diseases, and of course ignorance. You would answer the ignorance equation by education, okay? We still have a major problem in our education system. So actually, if you ask me 60 years after independence, the ignorance, it's not the question of being able to read A, B, C, D. Ignorance has many forms. You can have a university degree, yet you are ignorant of something. If people cannot stand for their own right, they're also ignorant, whether they're educated or not. So education does not particularly and singularly answer the question of ignorance. Talking about disease, diseases are even more rampant in Tanzania today than it used to be many years ago. I mean, obtaining medical facilities or medical attention in time to save someone's life do happen, but rarely, particularly in the rural areas. So we still have those challenges. So poverty in general is there. Now we have new fresh diseases. Okay, corruption is a new disease. That was not there when Mwalimu was addressing the problem of the country. One of the major problems that is killing Tanzania today is corruption. Our government is corrupt, our leaders are corrupt, parastatus are being squandered. It's corruption, corruption, corruption. So that is another thing. And you asked for 3 new stuff. Okay, yes. I've mentioned corruption as one. The culture of stealing, okay, is one major issue in Tanzania as well. People do steal, particularly those in public offices. They do steal left, right, and center. If you ask me the third one, it's basically spiritual. It's the level of people who can tell the truth. That is a major issue in Tanzania. The research that was once done in what we call household survey said, in every 10 Tanzanians you meet, 8 of them will tell you lies. What they say, you can only trust 2 out of 10. So you can trust 2 people out of 10. That is a massive issue. Big problem. And in Dar es Salaam was even worse. Dar es Salaam metropolitan was 9-1, the ratio, 9-1. You can only trust 1 person out of 9. And in case of Dar es Salaam, that one person is me anyway. So I'm not part of the 9, I'm part of that one. So that is a serious problem. People will not tell you exactly what they believe in. They will tell you yes while they know it's no. I'm sure you have experienced in a way or another by living in Tanzania. So those are the challenges, and many more.
I mean, but there are also opportunities back home. I mean, we have heard of the government intention of signing a contract with the government of the United Arab Emirates for the managing the port activities in Dar es Salaam, which should create employment for many Tanzanians. And that is something that CHADEMA should be happy about.
Aneth, are you sure you're not teasing me?
I'm not.
I'm sure. Did you hear my statement that I released a few days ago? No, this is so sad. So sad indeed, so sad. That people can get our country into such a mess. It's a shame for the country. I asked the president, Madam President, to save our nation from this shame by withdrawing the intention to go into that kind of a contract. It's not the question of the port of Dar es Salaam. It's like we are surrendering our sovereignty to the Dubai ruling, to the Dubai rulers. We are surrendering the ports of Dar es Salaam, Tanga, Mtwara, Lindi, Pangani, Bukoba, Mwanza, Musoma, Ukerewe. You mentioned it. In all the lakes, in Lake Tanganyika, in Lake Nyasa, in Lake Victoria, all the coastal lines of Tanzania, we surrender indefinitely, infinitely to the Dubai rulers. And in that very contract, you don't even see what is the benefit that the government of Tanzania or the people of Tanzania are going to get. There are so many questions pertaining to that particular agreement. And I don't know, it's a contentious issue going on in Tanzania today. And I'm sure as I get to Dar es Salaam tomorrow, I will be on top of that. Because there's no any single benefit that can be established in that particular contract as it is today. And nothing is stipulated there, but somebody can decide to hand over all the ports of the country, and in that particular contract, we handle all the trade corridors. They can claim any amount of land they want anywhere, and the government will not ask for any kind of compensation. And this is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So in that particular contract, it's a total rip-off. And I will be surprised if after all the outcry, they will still go on and grant the concession, that kind of concession.
We'll be also following up on that topic, I think. We have seen what diasporas do for other countries in terms of political development in their home countries. What do you have any expectation towards the Tanzanian diaspora in bringing about positive change back home?
Certainly yes. Certainly yes. And but admittedly, unfortunately, we have a small diaspora comparing to the rest of African countries. The Kenyan diaspora will be maybe 10 times our diaspora. Uganda diaspora will be 15 times our diaspora. Nigerian diaspora will be 100 times our diaspora. We have a small diaspora. Why? For many years, our country was closed. Okay, up until the early 90s, Tanzania was a closed society. Our people wouldn't travel as easy as many other African countries, and consequently, we had very few Tanzanians living or working, studying abroad. They were there, but few of them. So if you compare the Tanzanian diaspora to the rest of the African countries, you find that our diaspora is still very fragile and very small. But small as it is still a significant contributor in terms of idea, of know-how, of skills, of, cultural mix as well. Now, we also have a problem with our own laws in Tanzania regarding the diaspora, the citizenship of we in CHADEMA says, okay, we need dual citizenship system, whereby our sisters and brothers and children and fathers who are studying or working abroad can obtain the citizenship of that other country, but they will they are supposed also to remain their birthright, to remain with their birthright citizenry, that is Tanzania citizenry. We have been arguing that for many years. System when it's governed doesn't want. I don't know why. If you ask me why, I honestly don't understand why they will be against the dual citizenship, because it's a win-win situation for everyone. But again, as I say, in diaspora you find a lot of professionals, okay? And you know, being exposed does not necessarily mean going to school. Living in a different culture, in a different environment, it's a learning curve. If somebody can come to Germany and live in Germany for 6 months, for 1 year, for 2 years, whether he goes to the university or not, he's another person altogether. He's exposed. He gets to know many other things in life. So our diaspora have a role, and a very significant role indeed, to play back in Tanzania. And we understand as well they do a lot of remittances back to their families who are back in Africa. Some of them bring in some capital to do some investment from real estate to small businesses and factories. They do support in many different ways. So it's also a new source of foreign exchange. Kenya, for instance, last 2 years, Kenya had foreign reserves, sourced from diaspora remittances, which was more than $5 billion. That was bigger than all the traditional exports of Kenya. That includes coffee, tea, and what else? Coffee, tea, and vegetables combined. Okay, they couldn't reach the money that Kenyans could generate from remittance from diaspora. Tanzania, we are yet to reach a $1 billion mark. We are less than that. Something like $500 million. We're still very small. But of course, it's growing. When we come into power, trust me, you will get dual citizenship immediately.
Now, before you come into power, because I remember a few years ago, we had Zito Kabwe for a discussion, and he mentioned an idea of the opposition party uniting towards the election, not uniting to become one, but forming a coalition to have one candidate representing the opposition party. Is that idea still there? Are those plans still there?
You see, that was Zito Kabwe, and this is Freeman Mbowe. Okay, I'm not bounded to tie myself down to what Zito said. But honestly, at any one point in time, unity is strength. You know, you'll be only a fool to say unity is not strength. But again, it depends. What kind of person are you joining forces with? Do you share the vision? Do you share what you have? Or is it the question of, since I'm the opposition, besides knowing what my ideology and my policies are, we join forces simply to take that person out of power? Yes, we want to take system out of power, but again, we need to take system out of power while knowing exactly what we're going to do for our country. So we are not ruling out working with any political party, any serious political party that we think we share the idea, we share the vision, we share the struggle. We can trust a person or a party that can be trusted. The moment we think and we believe in our own terms and your own terms as well, that we can trust you, we have no problem working with anybody. And not only the political parties, by the way. We can work with civil society. We can work with individuals. We can work with academia. We can work with anybody. You see, the struggle to transform our country is not the role of CHADEMA alone. We want everybody to take equity in this struggle, in this process. So we are willing to work with anybody that we think can add value to the process.
Now, being very provocative, because we're coming to an end, would that person be you?
Which that person?
That person to be trusted?
No, I don't know whether I'll be me or you'll be you. That we'll discuss about how to cross the river when we get by the bridge. At this point in time, we just need to build a formidable position, an informed citizenry, people who can unite with the vision of transforming that country into a better Tanzania, into a better world.
Thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you.